Have you ever felt like there is a piece of the puzzle missing when you read the Bible? You read about Genesis, about the early days of humanity, and suddenly there are giants on the earth. There are angels coming down and having children with humans. It happens so fast. It is just a few verses in the book of Genesis, chapter 6. And then, just as quickly as it is mentioned, the flood comes and washes it all away. If you are like most people, you have probably paused there and asked yourself what is going on here. Who were these beings? Why did they come here? And most importantly, why does the official Bible say so little about something so massive? That is where the Book of Enoch comes in. This is not just some random dusty scroll found in a cave, though it was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is a text that was once considered scripture by some of the most important early Christians. It is quoted in the New Testament. Jesus himself used phrases and ideas that seem to come directly from it. And yet, for centuries, it was pushed aside. It was hidden. Today, we are going to open that book. We are going to walk through the Book of Enoch, chapter by chapter, concept by concept, to understand what it actually says. We are going to look at the Watchers, the Nephilim, the visions of heaven, and the final judgment. And we are going to ask why this book was left out and what it tells us about the spiritual world that the standard texts might have missed. Imagine for a moment you are living in ancient times. The world is a terrifying place. You look up at the stars, and you do not just see balls of gas burning billions of miles away. You see living beings. You see order. You see a clockwork universe run by angels. That is the world Enoch lived in. The Bible tells us very little about Enoch. It says he walked with God, and then he was not, for God took him. That is it. He did not die. He just ascended. But this book, the Book of Enoch, claims to be the record of what happened before he was taken and what he saw when he went up. The story begins with a group of angels called the Watchers. In the Book of Enoch, there are 200 of them. They are not demons, at least not yet. They are celestial beings who are supposed to be watching over humanity. They are like sentries or guardians. But they get bored, or maybe they get jealous. They look down at the earth and they see the daughters of men. They see that human women are beautiful. And they make a pact. They gather on Mount Hermon, which is a real mountain you can visit today on the border of Syria and Lebanon. They swear an oath to one another. They decide they are going to break the cosmic rules. They are going to leave their station in heaven and come down to earth to take wives for themselves. This is a massive moment in the story. It is the moment the boundary between the spiritual and the physical is broken. It is a rebellion. Their leader is an angel named Shemyaza. He is worried that the others might back out at the last minute, leaving him to take the blame alone. So they all swear a curse upon themselves if they do not go through with it. So they come down, they take human wives, and the result is unnatural. The women give birth to giants. The Book of Enoch calls them the Nephilim. Now, pause and think about the logic here. In the ancient world, people were trying to explain why there was so much violence and chaos. If God created a good world, why is it full of war and bloodshed? The Book of Enoch offers a very specific answer. It says, the corruption of the world did not just come from Adam and Eve eating a fruit. It came from an invasion. It came from spiritual beings infecting the human bloodline. These giants, the Nephilim, are not friendly. They are insatiable. They eat all the food the humans produce. When the food runs out, they start eating the animals. And when the animals are gone, they start eating the humans. And finally, they start eating each other. It is a nightmare scenario. The earth itself cries out against them. But the violence is only half the problem. The Watchers brought something else with them. They brought forbidden knowledge. This is one of the most fascinating parts of the book. The angels start teaching humanity things they were not supposed to know yet, or maybe things they were never supposed to know. One angel teaches men how to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. He teaches them the art of war. Before this, presumably, humans were fighting with sticks and stones. Now they have metallurgy. They have weapons of mass destruction relative to their time. Another angel teaches women about makeup, about beautifying the eyelids, and wearing jewelry. You might think, what is wrong with makeup? But in the context of this ancient story, it is about seduction. It is about using appearance to manipulate. It is seen as a corruption of natural simplicity. They teach them about roots and cutting of herbs, which refers to sorcery and witchcraft. They teach them how to read the stars, astrology, and the signs of the moon. Think about what this represents. It is technology. It is science without morality. It is knowledge given to a species that is not mature enough to handle it. It is like giving a loaded gun to a toddler. The Book of Enoch is arguing that civilization itself, the very things we often pride ourselves on, weapons, complex beauty rituals, occult knowledge, actually came from a fallen source. It explains why human progress so often goes hand in hand with human destruction. So the earth is in chaos. Blood is being spilled everywhere. The cry of humanity reaches the gates of heaven. The archangels Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel look down and see the mess. They go to God and say, "You have to do something." God sends the flood as a reset button. But before that happens, Enoch is given a job. And this is a twist you might not expect. The fallen angels, the watchers, realize they are in trouble. They are terrified. They cannot go back to heaven, but they know judgment is coming. So they ask Enoch to pray for them. Imagine that. These powerful cosmic beings are asking a human to intercede for them. Enoch writes down their petition. He goes to the waters of Dan, sits down and reads it. He falls asleep and has a vision. The answer from God is a hard no. God tells Enoch to go back to the watchers and tell them, "You should be petitioning for men, not men for you." He asks them why they left their high station to defile themselves with women. He tells them that because they have rejected their spiritual nature for a physical one, they will watch their giant sons kill each other in battle, and then they will be bound under the earth for 70 generations until the final judgment. This cements Enoch's role as a prophet. He is the bridge between the human and the divine. From here, the book shifts gears. Enoch is taken on a tour of the cosmos. Angels pick him up and fly him through the universe. This section is often called the Book of the Watchers, but it turns into a kind of celestial geography lesson. He sees the storehouses of the winds. He sees the cornerstone of the earth. He sees the place where the 7 stars of heaven are bound together like great mountains burning with fire. These are stars that disobeyed God's command, and they are in a prison. This is crucial for understanding the ancient worldview. Stars were not just gas, they were living entities. Jude in the New Testament talks about wandering stars for whom blackest darkness has been reserved forever. He is referencing this exact concept from Enoch. Enoch sees the mountain of the dead. He sees a place with 4 hollow places, deep and wide and very smooth. This is Sheol, the waiting room for souls. But it is not just one big room, it is divided. There is a compartment for the righteous, where there is a spring of water and light. There is a compartment for sinners who are not punished on earth. They stay there in great pain until Judgment Day. There is a compartment for those who are murdered and cry out for justice. And there is a compartment for sinners who have already been punished but won't be resurrected. It is a very orderly system of justice. No one gets away with anything. Even if you died a rich and happy tyrant, your soul is held in a specific place awaiting what you deserve. Then Enoch is taken to see the tree of life. He describes it as looking like a palm tree, and its fruit is beautiful like the date. The fragrance is overpowering. The angel Michael tells him that no mortal is allowed to touch this tree until the great judgment. After that, its fruit will be given to the chosen ones. It will be transplanted to the holy place, to the temple of the king. This connects directly to the Book of Revelation, which talks about the tree of life being in the New Jerusalem. It connects to Genesis. It shows a consistent thread of hope that what was lost in Eden will be restored. As we move deeper into the book, we get to the Book of Parables. This is perhaps the most controversial part for Jewish scholars and the most exciting part for Christian scholars, because here Enoch sees a figure called the Son of Man. He sees the Ancient of Days, which is a title for God, sitting on a throne of glory. And standing with him is another being, whose face looks like the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness, like one of the holy angels. Enoch asks the angel who this is. The angel answers, "This is the Son of Man who has righteousness, with whom dwelleth righteousness, and who reveals all the treasures of that which is hidden." This Son of Man is a messianic figure. He is pre-existent. He was named before the sun, and the signs were created, before the stars of the heaven were made. He is the one who will judge the kings and the mighty of the earth. If this sounds familiar, it is because Jesus uses the title Son of Man for himself more than any other title in the Gospels. For a long time, people thought Jesus was just calling himself a human being. But if the Book of Enoch was popular in his day, and we know it was, then when Jesus called himself the Son of Man, he was not being humble. He was claiming to be this cosmic judge from Enoch's vision. He was saying, "I am the one who was there before the stars. I am the one who will judge the nations." This is a massive theological bomb. It suggests that the idea of a divine Messiah was not something invented by Christians later on. It was already there in the Jewish tradition, preserved in books like Enoch. But the book doesn't stop with theology. It goes into astronomy. The Book of the Heavenly Luminaries is a section that is very dry and technical, but it is important. It details the movements of the sun and the moon. It talks about gates in the east and west that the sun rises and sets through. Why is this here? Because Enoch is obsessed with order. The sun and moon obey God. The stars obey God. The seasons obey God. The only beings in the entire universe who do not obey God are the fallen watchers and wicked humans. Nature itself is a testimony against the rebellion of sin. The predictability of the sunrise is a daily reminder that God is in charge and chaos will not win. Later in the book, there is a section called the Animal Apocalypse. This is a retelling of the entire history of Israel, but using animals as symbols. It sounds like a dream you might have after eating too much cheese, but it is actually a very precise allegory. Adam is a white bull. Eve is a white heifer. Seth is a white bull. But Cain is a black bull. The story goes on. The Nephilim are represented as different kinds of wild beasts. The flood is water, obviously. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are bulls. But then something changes. The sheep represent the people of Israel. It tells the story of the Exodus, the judges, the kings, and the exile. It describes the enemies of Israel as wolves, lions, and tigers. It is a history lesson written in code. But it gets to the end times. It predicts a final battle. The Lord of the sheep comes down. A big sword is given to the sheep to fight back against the beasts. And then a white bull is born with large horns, and all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air fear him and make petition to him at all times. This is the Messiah. And eventually, all the sheep are turned into white bulls. It is a picture of restoration, of humanity returning to the state of Adam before the fall. Now, you might be asking, if this book is so amazing, why isn't it in my Bible? That is the million-dollar question. The truth is, it almost was. The early church fathers, guys like Tertullian and Justin Martyr, loved this book. They defended it. They quoted it. The Epistle of Jude, which is in the New Testament, quotes Enoch 1:9 word for word. "Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his holy ones to execute judgment on all and to convict all the ungodly." So the authors of the Bible knew it and respected it. But over time, it fell out of favour. There were a few reasons. One was the controversy over the angels. Later Jewish and Christian thinkers became uncomfortable with the idea of angels having bodies and having sex with women. It seemed too physical, too messy. They started interpreting the sons of God in Genesis as just the godly line of Seth, and the daughters of men as the wicked line of Cain. This removed the supernatural element and made Enoch seem heretical. Another reason was that the Jewish rabbis, after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, wanted to distance themselves from Christian claims. Since Christians were using the Book of Enoch to prove Jesus was the Son of Man, some scholars believe the rabbis pushed the book away to cut off that argument. By the 4th century, the book was mostly banned. It disappeared from the West. It was lost for over 1,000 years. Everyone thought it was gone forever. But there was one place where it survived: Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church never rejected the Book of Enoch. They kept it in their Bible. They copied it by hand, century after century, in the ancient Ge'ez language. While Europe was in the Dark Ages, monks in the highlands of Ethiopia were preserving this treasure. It was not until the 1700s that a Scottish explorer named James Bruce went to Ethiopia and found it. He brought 3 copies back to Europe. Suddenly, scholars could read it again. And then, in the 1940s, the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. And guess what they found? Multiple copies of the Book of Enoch in Aramaic. This proved that the Ethiopian text was accurate. It proved that this book was widely read and treasured by the Jewish community essentially during the time of Jesus. It vindicated the text. So what do we do with this book today? You do not have to consider it equal to the Gospel of John or the book of Genesis to find value in it. You can read it as history. You can read it as the context that helps explain the New Testament. When Peter talks about angels being cast into gloomy dungeons to be held for judgment, he is talking about the story in Enoch. When Jesus talks about the Son of Man sitting on his glorious throne, he is using the language of Enoch. But beyond the academic connections, there is a spiritual message here that resonates. The Book of Enoch takes evil seriously. It acknowledges that the world is messed up not just because people make bad choices, but because there are dark forces at work. It validates the feeling that we are in a spiritual war. It also gives hope. The recurring theme is that God sees everything. He sees the watchers. He sees the giants. He sees the secret sins of the powerful. And he has a plan to deal with it. The chaos is temporary. The judgment is certain. Think about the Nephilim again. We might not have physical giants running around today, but we have systems and technologies and powers that seem to consume humanity. We have things that feel like they are eating the resources of the earth and the lives of the poor. The spirit of the Nephilim, the spirit of unbridled consumption and power, is still very much with us. And the forbidden knowledge. We live in an age where technology is advancing faster than our morality. We have the power to edit genes, to create artificial intelligence, to destroy the planet with a few buttons. The warning of the watchers is more relevant now than ever. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Knowledge without wisdom is a curse. The Book of Enoch reminds us that there is a boundary. There is a natural order. And when we cross those lines, when we try to become gods ourselves, we create monsters. But the ultimate hope of the book is in the ascent. Enoch, a mere human, is invited into the throne room of God. He is allowed to see the secrets of the universe. This tells us that God does not want to keep us in the dark. He wants to share his glory with us. He wants to raise us up. The destiny of humanity, according to this book, is not just to survive on earth. It is to join the family of heaven. It is to become like the stars, shining forever. So when you read those strange verses in Genesis about giants and sons of God, do not skip over them. Realize that there is a massive backstory there. A story of rebellion, of corruption, and of a God who intervenes to save humanity from destroying itself. The Book of Enoch is like a lost lens. When you put it on, the blurry parts of the Bible suddenly snap into focus. The demons Jesus casts out are the disembodied spirits of the dead giants. The powers and principalities Paul talks about are the hierarchies established by the Watchers. The end of the world is not just a fire. It is the final imprisonment of the rebel angels and the cleansing of the earth from their corruption. It is a strange book. It is a wild book. It is full of visions that melt your brain. But it is also a book of profound faith. It was written by people who were holding on to hope in a dark world. They believed that despite the monsters, despite the corruption, the Lord of Spirits was on the throne. And that is a message that never gets old. Whether you view it as canon or just as an important ancient text, the Book of Enoch challenges us to look at the world with spiritual eyes. It asks us to wake up to the reality of the unseen realm. So next time you look at the stars, remember Enoch, remember the Watchers, and remember that there is more to this universe than meets the eye. The story is bigger than we think, and we are part of it.